Hello, everyone. Welcome to the MakerDAO Scientific Governance and Risk Meeting number 115, taking place on Thursday, October 22nd at 1600 UTC. Please join us if you're interested. Yeah, so I am joined by 30-odd Maker-related people on this fine Thursday. My name is Long for Wisdom. I'm the Governance Facilitator for MakerDAO currently. I'll go through the usual preamble. Feel free to interrupt and contribute to this call. Don't worry about interrupting people. It's fine if it becomes a problem. I'll let you know. We'd love to hear from all of you. So let's see, I'll just quickly go through the agenda, then we'll get started. So we're going to have weekly updates from the domain teams, the regular weekly updates, and on MIPs and community stuff. I'm going to do the MIPS governance poll review as part of the procedural things. Then we've got two kind of presentation-ish segments this week. We've got Derek presenting the improvements to the governance portal. This is similar to the presentation that happened on the community call earlier this week. So some of you may already have seen it, but for those that haven't, the new portal is pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to have Juan talk about the collateral prioritization framework and show some pictures. All right, I guess we'll get started. Oh yeah, the one last thing. Just another reminder about daylight saving time and time zones. This meeting is scheduled in UTC, which means it will move for most of you if you're living somewhere with a daylight savings adjustment. So just be aware that this may change. The time for this meeting may change by an hour in the next little while. All right, cool. I'll start with the governance update then. Going through governance at a glance. So we've had some fairly active discussions on the forum this week. We had a really interesting post from Hugh Karp of Nexus Mutual talking about MakerDAO potentially taking out insurance against bad debt on the protocol, which kind of garnered a lot of discussion and some good points from on both sides from various people. I think we're going to try and get Hugh on next week's governance and risk meeting to do a brief presentation and to kind of open a discussion on this meeting. So if anybody's interested in that, make sure you come next week. Let's see, the rates working group posted some guidance on the rate setting framework that's going to be in use now that that proposal has gone through governance. So this is kind of a basic description of how rate proposals will be kind of formed, kind of what times things should happen. Thanks, Amy. Yeah. So yeah, read that if you're interested in how rates are going to be set from now on, or how rate changes are going to be proposed from now on. Also wanted to highlight a post from Hexanauts talking about the official launch of makeranalytics.com. That's Sam M. Perhaps Sam, if you want to talk briefly about it now, you can. But yeah, it's a really awesome analytics site for the Maker protocol with all sorts of metrics you can track and combine in interesting ways. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of conclusions people can draw from it.
You want me to talk about that now?
If you want to do a brief, like few sentence plug or something, that would be fine.
Sure. So Maker Analytics is a site for basically tracking time series of every stat within the Maker protocol. It doesn't have everything right now, but it has most things that are relevant. And if there's anything that needs to be added, feel free to just open up an issue or a pull request or whatever. All the code is open source. So yeah, have a look. You can break down by vault type and yeah, time series data. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions or whatever.
Great, yeah, thanks, Sam. Yeah, it's going to highlight that this site's existed for a little while, but it's kind of now just coming into proper functionality, and it's great. So everyone, take a look. All right, in terms of seeking consensus this week, signal request wise, we had, I think, one new signal request only, which was Sam M proposing or starting signal request on the kind of action plan for stablecoin vaults. As people have seen previous meetings will be aware, this has been discussed fairly thoroughly in these meetings. And Sam's kindly put together a post that kind of summarizes the various options with the poll. So yeah, please take a look at that and vote if you have strong feelings about how we should deal with the stablecoin vaults. The other choosing requests from last week, so increasing the auction surplus buffer and approving maker representatives are currently on chain and have actually, I guess, just finished. I haven't checked the results yet. Perhaps someone can chime in if someone knows. So the maker representatives poll passed, and increasing the surplus auction buffer has passed. So that's good. All right, I think that covers governance at a glance. In terms of other governance things that are going on, I mentioned last week that I've been working on documentation for governance parameters, kind of still working on that. It's going to be like a semi-long-term thing, I think. I'm kind of starting with the parameters which are most often talked about. The kind of hope is that we can link to those documentations whenever we're proposing signal requests or changes to certain parameters, for example, the debt ceilings or collateralization ratios, so that people who are newer to the protocol can get informed more easily. Other than that, I've basically just been keeping things running. All right, so that pretty much covers my updates. Smart contracts, Chris, do you want to do a smart contracts update?
Yeah, sure. So everybody, Chris Mooney from Smart Contracts Domain Team. This is the Domain Team update. So last week we worked on the FB executive, which passed and is in or on mainnet now. And we didn't do any collateral assessments for last week, mostly because we were busy with onboarding Ballet to Covan last week, which took a lot longer because we've been working on this collateral onboarding documentation while we're onboarding Ballet. So Ballet was the collateral that we used. And so that was days and days. I just wanted to put a sort of shout out to Sam and Brian and the integrations team for smart contracts, because it's a lot of work, and I think that doc is pretty much done, and it should pay dividends in the future for us in terms of ramping up other teams to onboard collateral. So yeah, so I think Brian, Lucas, they also worked on the DSS exec lib. I don't know if they want to mention anything yet, or I'll let you guys chime in if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I can say something. We've been spending the last couple weeks working on an executive library that'll help us speed up and reduce potential for errors in our executive spellcrafting process. Also, right now, our collateral onboarding process is a very manual process where we go through checklists and follow a prescribed pattern of work. The exec lab is basically going to automate a lot of that for us and take a lot of work off of our development team and then collateral onboarding teams outside of the foundation. And then there's just additional things we can set all of our debt ceilings and stability fees and rates with single call now rather than all of the boilerplate that we had before. So
another goal of this was to abstract away a lot of the Taiwanese. So outside community members can just call these functions. They're called like set global debt ceiling instead of increase vat.line.
Much clearer die.
Thanks, guys. Let's see. So we didn't do a lot of work on the priority sheet. Most of that was done last week, but we adjusted the weights in the priority sheet a little bit. And we did a domain team review of MIP 22. So the results of that are in the forums post for MIP 22. So in the coming week, which actually will probably be done by the end of this week, we're going to get Wi-Fi into Covan using that new documentation. It should go much faster. And then for next week, we're hoping to put Wi-Fi and BAL into the executive for next Friday. So we'll be doing the mainnet spellcrafting on that. We'll probably end up going with GUSD to Kovan next week as well. And we have a monthly executive, which I think maybe someone will probably discuss in more detail, but so we have to craft that for Monday. And then just sort of in a more broader sense, we're still planning on doing the Uni, Ren BTC, TBTC assessments. And we still have to do domain team reviews of MIP 14, 17, and 25. And the foundation team is continuing to work on liquidations 2.0, trying to get it code complete, and discussions have begun with auditors. So that's it.
Great, yeah, thanks, Chris. That was awesome. I was expecting to skip oracles, but I think Nick is here. I think I saw him earlier. Is he gone again?
I believe you said listen mode only. You might not.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So I'll just cover the kind of brief update for oracles. I think the only major thing of note is that the Oracle polls for the B protocol whitelisting on the OSM and Medianizer ETHUSD feeds passed their polls, I believe, and I'll double check. And should be in the executive this week if they did indeed pass, which I think they did. Just check. Yeah, they both passed. So they should be in the executive this week. All right, I think that covers oracles. Primož, do you want to do risk?
Yep. So this week, Marco from our team published GUSD and PEXG collateral evaluations. I think assessment from other domain teams for these two assets are also done, so we should proceed to on-chain poll and executive vote soon. We're also focusing on new assets to be evaluated. It seems Aave migration was kind of successful, although still not completely finished. But it seems the new token now has sufficient liquidity, was also listed on Aave platform, which makes us more confident to start with evaluation on our end. Also, as mentioned last week, Uniswap was highly ranked on priority sheet. So a member of our team already started working on collateral evaluation for it. And then, as already mentioned, REN BTC and REN are also being evaluated by new external analysts. The biggest thing in my mind this week was rate change proposal that Long mentioned. There was also one post by me, of course, co-authored by other rate group members. And as Long mentioned, there was also this post for a general framework that will deliver this kind of posts regularly. And as already explained, the plan of this release was mostly to demonstrate our decision-making process. And therefore, we didn't make any changes to rates, apart from potential changes needed for stablecoins. In regards to that stablecoin, there was a signal poll made by Sam, as also already mentioned. So please vote on that one, so we get more feedback from community about the strategy regarding stablecoin fees. And then finally, I want to quickly mention there's also work in progress on real-world assets on the risk side. In the background, Sebastian and Will have been doing a really great job for the last couple of weeks, producing a lot of materials for risk, and I think we're moving ahead with a really decent pace. So yeah, that's pretty much all from our side.
Great, thanks very much. You remind me, so I'll just confirm the governance polls for onboarding GUSD and PAXG will both go on chain on Monday next week. So be aware that they're going to be going on, and please vote if you feel strongly about those assets. Does anyone have any questions for Primož before moving on? All right. Let's see who's next. Amy, community development and operational support.
Yeah. Not much to update for governance, mostly heads down on initiatives that are not ready to be announced yet, but we are looking to increase awareness for new vault types, and then features in the governance portal. So we'll be doing a little bit more governance communications push for that. And then teams and individuals who are more interested in contributing to something like oracles. Just generally from the community, we have been, there are a few initiatives that the community has brought up, which is something called a directory, which is to onboard and bring awareness to merchants who take DAI. Great timing now. And then there is the DAI LATAM action group, which they recently had a completion of a successful local messaging pilot to increase DAI adoption in Latin America. And then we are creating some POAP, proof of attendance NFTs for recognizing contributors. So that way we'll have essentially more badges and more NFTs for you guys. And then exploring a MakerDAO forum podcast, which is a maker relay in a podcast form, so that we can incorporate voter education into the content. And then we did also onboard a new grantee, a development grantee, Valente POS, which is a point of sale system that makes it easier for merchants to generate tax compliant invoices. So that's just the only updates for us.
Oh, really? Okay. you have great updates. It's fine. All right, cool. Juan, do you want to do an update on the collateral calls? The actual sheet we can maybe go through a little bit later, but just general updates.
Share my screen, please.
Yeah, sure. There you go.
Okay. Let me know when you can see it. You cannot yet, huh?
You can see it now. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, this is the update for the collateral onboarding, calls in general and collateral more in general. Yesterday we had an interesting call with the Stasis. They were presenting the Euro Stasis, so the Euro-backed stablecoin. And then we had the people from crypto.com. The agenda, the notes are already on the forum. So if you want to go check them out, thanks to Pablo mainly for the quick turnover of the notes. Next week, we're going to have a console fright for the real world assets, and they're going to explain what they do, how they work, and their partnership with Centrifuge. So we're expecting an interesting call there. And then at 6 p.m. UTC, we're going to have Curb Finance. Again, please check out what UTC is if you're in, I don't know, the Americas or Europe, because that might change from one person to the next. The collateral onboarding framework is going to be posted in the forum today. So I need to just iron a couple of details, but it's ready to go. I'll be speaking about that later. But basically it brings the different domain teams and working groups together to collaborate on the collateral onboarding, which brings me to a little bit of shilling. So there's help wanted. If you're good at risk or data analytics, please talk to Primoz. I'm sure he will appreciate the help. Same thing with oracles. If you're interested, speak to Nick. And if you're any good with smart contracts and I guess Solidity, speak with Chris Mooney. And if you're good at the three of them, there's the fellowship that the Maker Foundation announced with Kleros. We're going to have Federico joining us right after this call. So today at 5:30 UTC. And yeah, he's going to explain what Kleros does, open for Q&A with the community, and then he's going to explain what the fellowship is about and how people can participate if they want to. So join us after this call if you're interested. more help wanted. Any developers, full stack or comms people, they should reach out to Tim or Amy. I'm guessing Anna as well. If you're looking to get involved in governance, long for wisdom, and if you want to be a scribe and help with the note taking, reach out for David. And I think that's it from my side.
Great, thank you, Juan. Chris, did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering, I had kind of asked this in the forums, but Crypto.com's liquidity for DAI is pretty poor, and I was interested if they were going to try and use their CRO token to provide more liquidity on their exchange, if we were to add it to, because I assume they have reserves of CRO that they would, could sort of pivot into DAI liquidity on their exchange, but they answered pretty broadly, I think, in the forums, but I wasn't sure if they had touched on that at all in the collateral onboarding call.
They did speak a little bit, but we did not go a lot into details. I guess the Q&A wasn't particularly structured, but yeah, we can try asking again in the forums, I guess. Sorry to not have a better answer, Chris.
Hey Juan, I have a quick question. That company that's green lighting right now, that's in real estate, I can't think of the name.
OST1?
Yeah, that one. Did they ever come on your show? If so, do you remember when so I could look at it? Because I'm having a hard time trying to figure out what exactly they do.
Which company? Sorry, I didn't get it.
OST1. I'm not actually sure how to pronounce it. Houston LP something.
Yeah, the one that's trying to build a building, or they're trying to buy one apartment.
Upreds, right? That was the group.
I cannot remember having them, so I don't think so. I'll check David's link, but I do not remember having them. No, they did not, I don't think. Or maybe it was one of the first ones, but I cannot remember them, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think they have, from what I can remember.
Yeah.
They look pretty active in the forum. Like their last response was like 14 hours ago.
I mean, we can always invite them if they have not yet presented. I cannot remember them, but yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting if you could.
Yeah, let's reach out.
Cool.
Thank you, Frank.
Great. Thank you, Juan. I think that brings us to MIPS. Charles, you good to go?
Yep. Hello, everyone. Just going to share my screen. Okay, so this week we had the monthly MIPS governance poll published on Monday for the 8 proposals that passed the inclusion poll stage. The bundled poll ran for 3 days ending today as the governance call started, and the results were pretty obvious, with the yes votes being 61,584 MKR for yes and 0 no votes, which is really awesome to see. And as usual today, Long for Wisdom is going to perform the governance poll review to confirm the poll's outcomes in preparation for next week's executive vote that will go out on Monday. And that will also be the last week of the governance cycle. Just to reiterate what the governance poll bundle was, it had 4 MIPs, the protocol DAI transfer, the target price adjustment module, 2 MIPs for real world assets, the technical side of them, and the domain structure and roles proposal. And there were also 3 sub-proposals, 2 for the real world assets that were a part of the technical solution mentioned above in the MIPS, and lastly, a declarations of intent for the strategic reserves fund. So as I mentioned before, next week we'll have the executive vote be published on Monday. The executive vote will be alive or active for 4 days, and if it does not pass before that, it will effectively be rejected. So it's really important to vote early when the executive goes live. So this is a reminder to vote. And then as the last Thursday of the month for the governance cycle, we'll have Long for Wisdom do the governance cycle review, summarizing everything that's happened over the course of this month, and opening up the floor for feedback and questions from the community on the general process of MIPS and governance, as well as discuss any plans for November's governance cycle for the proposals that are in the request for comments phase. In terms of collateral onboarding updates, we have the YFI and BAL governance polls that successfully passed last week. So the executive vote to officially add them to the Maker protocol is tentatively scheduled for next Friday. As Juan mentioned, the collateral prioritization framework will be made public today. I put coming days because I was unsure of the actual date, but just to reiterate what this framework is it's a public available spreadsheet that anyone in the community can go and check out to understand why certain collateral assets are being prioritized. And it's important to note that the first version is not necessarily ever going to be the final version. It's much like the MIPS and the core principle that it will be iterated on and improved upon frequently. And all of that will come with public and transparent communication. And lastly, PAX-G and GUSD collateral onboarding governance polls will go out on Monday as well. Additionally, we have the community greenlight polls that went live on Monday for 11 collateral types, and they're displayed on the right. Since I'm moving through these slides pretty quickly, I'll include this diagram in the weekly MIPS update that I'll post today as well, so people can read that. As a general recap for the proposals that are in the request for comments phase, we have quite a lot. So it's been a busy October and it's going to be a busy November, pending that all the authors of these proposals do intend to submit them for November. But we have the weekly actual debt ceiling adjustments by Planet X, the MIP24 emergency response, which was recently updated by David Outreau and added as an author with John Aithman. So Long for Wisdom and myself have made some comments on the post. I will also follow up with some other ones, but if you do want to submit this proposal for November, you would have to make sure all the changes are in by October 28th to leave that 1 week frozen period where the proposal can't be changed. Additionally, we have the Flash Mint module, which I believe conversations is still ongoing, and the same timeline for changes applies for all of these proposals. We have the governance contract redesign, the debt ceiling instant access module, and the operational support domain definition, defining the entire support domain and the structure. In terms of the sub-proposals, we have the source cred funding, which continues on the great work that they're doing and make sure that they're getting funding to operate it. And if I am wrong on that proposal, please correct me if I'm wrong. And additionally, with the support domain, MIP28, we have the sub-proposal to onboard Amy as the facilitator for that domain. And lastly, there's the calendar exceptions, which is a proposal to eliminate the governance cycle for the month of December, given that a lot of people are away and not as many people will be paying attention. And lastly, we have a couple new pre-MIP discussions. So the new ones are, there was one for MakerDAO that needs liquidity pools. So there's some conversations going on there. There was the one that was mentioned early in the call and posted in the chat by Amy, which was the Maker protocol cover using Nexus Mutual. And the not so new ones, but are relatively new, are a proposal to replace the mechanism to burn MKR with the Treasury. And lastly, the Flapper distributor, which was a way to distribute system surplus while minimizing governance overhead. And that's it for me today. If there are any questions, please go ahead and ask. If not, we can move on to the governance review by Long.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, so I mean, I'll just confirm what Charles said. The governance poll passed with 60,000 Maker in favor or something, and none against. So there's no reason for it not to continue. So it'll be the monthly executive on Monday, which, as Charles mentioned, needs to pass in 4 days for it to be considered ratified. So I look forward to that on the 26th. Cool. Okay, I think that covers all the regular updates and procedural things. So let's see. Is anyone? Derek, you are here. Are you ready to do a presentation about the new awesome governance portal?
Will do. If you give me access to share my screen, I will.
Yeah, you should be able to now. Yeah, you should be able to now, Derek.
Yep,
No,
got it.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, awesome. All right, cool. So I'll do a little walkthrough of the governance portal. First of all, I want to give a shout out, thanks to the foundation team that worked on this, the developers, as well as Jordan, who helped us with the research. So you guys would have probably heard from him around questions, everything from looking for information, having the right links in place, the user flow, and also to Mike on our design team, who helped us pull this awesome new site together. So the structure of the site is split into 3 different pages. Basically, you've got the landing page, you've got the polling page, and the executive page. On the landing page, we've introduced tabs that show the new polling votes here, and you'll also have the tomorrow and on Monday the new executive executive vote label showing up here as well. And we've retained, or we've put in a label just linking back to the v1.vote.makeradao site, so that still exists and will still be out there if people want to, for whatever reason, revisit that one, just as a fallback. And in terms of like making sure that we surface the right information, a lot of the research that came up was making sure we have all that information in this space. So the system stats, we've included the link out to DIA stats. We've got links to the forum, community tools. We're also surfacing executive votes and polling votes on the front page that link through to the polls and executive page, and then a link to governance blog posts. There was a lot of sort of emphasis as we were walking through this to make sure we're surfacing the right information. So if people have feedback on, I'm not particularly interested in this link, I'd rather have something else along. I know we were talking about something in that space with regards to the sort of information that we show here and how this could be potentially or discussed and walked through to figure out what makes the most sense for people. So definitely either jump in anytime on this call or use the channel, the Rocket Chat governance and risk channel to provide any input that you may have. Definitely looking forward to hearing from you guys. And we do have a backlog list that we're working through, so it's ongoing work and improvements are still to be made. So moving on to the polling page, the big update here, of course, is the batch polling. So I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out, and feedback so far is pretty positive. So being able to batch votes together. So we've only got the, I see we've just had all the other polls gone through as not active anymore. So you'll see those are split down here between ended polls and active polls. So what you can now do is vote through the overview page, add those to your ballot, and you'll see that the ballot recognizes that you've added to it and the counter goes up. Cool thing is that you can also go in, review the text, of course, if you're not familiar with what the vote is. You can also vote, add that to your ballot. Your ballot will record that, and you can go back to here and review what you voted on. And then review and submit will show you the overview of that participation, and then you can submit your ballot. And from what I've seen, the gas prices have been pretty good. So this is really an interim step at the moment. You guys signaled that you were interested in the snapshot solution. So in due course, we will be working on that. But for now, this seems to be a pretty good solution when we have so many concurrent polls at the same time. So and also what I will mention, it was a design decision that we made. You will remember that we had the vote breakdown in the right-hand column originally, and there was a lot of pro and con sort of discussion around whether we should retain that. A lot of people wanted to see where the interest was because it swayed them, but for others, the fact that they were swayed was a detractor. and it influenced the way they would vote as opposed to independently having a point of view. So we thought, okay, let's move it from that front page of the poll detail and put it behind a tab. That was the rationale. So again, if people think that extra click through for the use case of viewing that is sort of in the way or yeah, not ideal, definitely let me know and we'll see what we can do based on the feedback we get. Oh, and I'll also mention we have the total votes and unique voters. I'm not sure we had all of that detail in the previous portal. Another thing to mention, we have filter capability. So at the moment, it's by poll type, which we've got to, I've categorized these poll types and we just need to import that list and then you'll be able to filter on different variables such as oracles, risk variables, collateral onboarding, etc. And then also a date filter that lets you reduce down to a period of time just to make it a little bit easier to find what you're looking for in the wealth of polls that exist. So moving on to executive proposals. I don't think anything different is different in the card itself. We still retain and show the same information. I voted on this one, so I can't do so again. I am connected with my wallet, but I could view a previous one. And the nice thing with this is that, on the old proposal, we were only showing the latest proposal, not all the others. So the cool thing here is that you can, of course, see the amount of MKR in support. So you can see, okay, how much is on the hat? What are the other competing proposals, or which MKR has not moved, and gives a bit better of an overview of actually what the status of the system is. We've retained, of course, the proposal detail that the governance facilitator documents. We've added the on-chain effects, so very similar to what you will recognize from CatFlip. Just be aware that this is only for the JUG and VAT contracts. We will be working to expand this out and include the other MCD contracts that are impacted. So just be aware of that. And then, of course, you can click through to the link. This link used to be in the right-hand column, but we moved it into the on-chain effects section. And of course, favorite request from everyone has been the comments. So if I were to vote on a proposal, you will, of course, be able to add in your comment in here, submit it, sign it with your wallet, and that will then appear in the comments field so that the community can read it and review. So hopefully making it a bit more transparent as to why people are voting a certain way, and the information that's included in that also shows how much that particular commenter has in terms of MKR. So again, hopefully making it a bit clearer for people to see why decisions are going a certain way.
So for a new executive that's coming, is there still the section where it references how much MKR is needed to move to the next hat? I know you already voted on that one, so I don't know if it would otherwise be there.
If so, yes, it will say how much more is required to become the hat. Yes. So in the old portal, we would have said amount required to pass. I believe we do still have that. If that's what you were referring to, I think it was that.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so let me know what you guys think. I think that's my very brief overview of the 3 pages. And yeah, likewise, looking for all the feedback you have. Long, I saw your document, and we've got a list of improvements that we're working through as a backlog. So hoping to add to that and yeah, get it looking good across the board.
Great, yeah. Thanks very much, Derek. That was awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for you and all the people who worked on it. It's a big improvement, I think.
Cool. Sorry, I can't see the comments if there's any.
I think there's. I don't think there are any open questions.
I especially like the one that Kurt wrote to spell. Yeah. There's history there.
Yeah. Cool. Oh yeah. So I mean, the hope is that this, I guess, this new portal will mean that people more consistently vote on everything. Because what we've kind of seen before is people sometimes vote on the more controversial things more than the regular things. But with this new system, they'll be able to vote on everything for the same amount of gas and hopefully a similar amount of effort, or yeah, less effort.
Yeah, exactly. So hoping to see participation in the polls go up. I know it's actually been pretty good. When I was looking over the numbers, it was plus or minus a few % difference across polls. Definitely the more controversial ones got more attention, but hopefully this way, being able to streamline that participation will be helpful for people.
I have
then,
one. Yeah, sorry about that.
Go on, David.
All right, I wanted to quickly just ask the question because I want to just make sure it's covered here. I already kind of know the answer because you came on the community call on Tuesday, but there's a comment capability for executives, and I know that there's no comment capability for governance polls. Can you give just a brief update on whether that's in the plan, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, and I know Rune commented on that earlier in the week in the Rocket Chat channel as well. We haven't planned on it, to be honest, but if there is a request for it and people want to see it, there's no reason why we can't add it. We prioritize the executives because there was a lot of discussion in the forum and the polls specifically, and then it was a little unclear as to what people's sentiment was around the executive. So we prioritize that first as a priority, and we can certainly look to do the same for the polls. No reason why not. If there's appetite for it, absolutely.
Sweet, thanks so much.
Cool. Yeah, and okay, I guess that's a yes. All right, cool. Well, I guess I wanted to see how it was going to go with the executives and what sort of feedback and value we got from it before we put some dev time towards it. But let's see how it goes, and then I'll give you guys a shout out when we think we're going to jump to get that in as well. The things that we have coming up, of course, we've got the new governance contract. So that's going to require a rewrite of the executive page to support multiple concurrent executives. And that, of course, brings in some work around delegation, which will change the interface again. There's also going to be instant access modules once we get past MIP 17 and 26 or 27, I can't remember anymore. But so there's going to be ongoing updates and improvements, but that stuff is coming down the line, so it will keep us busy. Yeah, so that's all from me. Thank you, guys.
Great, yeah, thanks very much, Derek. As I said, that was awesome. I'm looking forward to using it more. So Kenton just asked, when are we switching to snapshot voting? I don't think we're planning to switch to it immediately. I don't think there are plans to switch to it. We're kind of just investigating integrating it with the current portal, right, Derek?
Exactly, yeah. We're investigating integrating it with the portal. Whether it will be side by side or complete replacement of the polling that we have is TBD, based on we have work to do to ensure that we can support ranked choice voting, which they do not currently support. So there's a little bit more work to do on it. I wouldn't put a date on it yet, but as soon as we get closer, that code's all public, so you guys will see when those improvements get done that we can start looking to integrate.
Great. I think that answers. Any other questions for Derek or before we move on? Cool. It doesn't look like it. So yeah, thank you again. All right, Juan, you ready to do your to kind of go over the collateral onboarding framework?
Yes, can you guys see the screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background on what we were doing, and we mentioned this in previous calls, but this framework it's a model to attempt to compare and prioritize different collateral types in the most objective possible way. to see intelligent discussion. So we do not believe that it's perfect by any means, but a living document. So ideally, it will get better with time. It was made mainly to allow domain teams, working group, and external contributors to have an overview of the collateral types, their onboarding status, and their different characteristics. So we wanted to provide transparency to the broader community and have a common ground for discussions and potential future collaboration. So ideally with this, everyone will be able to see what's coming, how are things being prioritized and why, and be able to understand more what's going on with each collaborator. So I'm going to publish later a post in the forum with a Google Sheet, which is what I'm going to show right now. So let me know if it's, maybe it's too small. I don't know if you guys can see it properly. I assume that it's fine, and then let me know if it is too small. So a little bit on how to read the framework. And again, this will be in the forums post, so don't worry too much. But basically the first row is each team that's responsible for filling each parameter. So that's row number 1. Row number 2 is the weight that each parameter will have for the scoring. And row number 3 will be each parameter. So anything that's green, it's a benefit or a good thing. And anything that's red, it's a little bit of a cost, quote unquote. Yeah, what else? The green light score was taken from the amount of maker that was approved in each poll, so in each green light poll, and then it was normalized between -16 and +16. Why the -16 and +16? It's because when each domain team or each working group chooses between low, medium, high, and extreme, you get 1, 2, 3, 4 squared. So it's 1, 4, 9, 16. So that's why the green light score is normalized between those values. Hopefully I didn't change that pretty much. Sorry, I'll check it out later. What else? Yeah, once that everything is calculated, what we do is we multiply the values that I just mentioned times the weight, and then we add them. And what we do to calculate the prioritization score is we subtract all the costs minus the benefits, well, times the weight. So it's we do the sum product, then we do the subtraction, and we end up with this list of collateral types with this order. So again, some considerations that we should think about. This is a model, so it's an imperfect representation of reality. We believe that some data is better than no data. The input from each team is subjective and reflects their extent of the current knowledge. So they might change their mind as soon as they investigate more, for example. Yeah, the weights will be adjusted with time. So we're looking forward to hearing feedback regarding that. I think that I'm not forgetting anything. Yeah, there are some things, for example, these pooled collateral types, they're quite difficult, but we do believe, for example, that if they were treated at the same time, once you do the first, the rest should be relatively easy. So there are more considerations than just taking them or just taking the prioritization score at face value, right? So some potential improvements that we thought about, it's the weight tweaking, that's number 1. New parameters if needed. So if you guys think that there's benefits or costs that we're not considering, please let us know. Maybe add a definition of the parameters so everyone understands the same thing. And then, yeah, ideally each domain team or each working group would draft documents to allow contributors to help, even if they come from outside, so they could help scale and onboard more collateral types if that's what the protocol and the maker holders want. And then we also thought about having a better UI, both for visualization and maybe data entry and modification. So maybe a nicer dashboard and some sleek UI so that each group can work from there. And again, any feedback that's proposed is more than welcome. I'll post this later today. So I'm going to open it for questions.
Not a question, but do you want to briefly cover the status tab as well?
Yes, sure.
Seeing as that kind of.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is, I don't know if it's a replacement yet, Long. Maybe you can comment on that one.
I'd like it to be a replacement because it's easier to keep up to date than the Collateral Status Index.
Sure. So the Collateral Status Index that Long was maintaining in the forum was moved here. So this is where the green light score was calculated and normalized. I don't know if I mentioned here that anything that does not have a green light score yet. No, that was the yellow. I forgot from. Sorry.
Yeah, yellow's when it hasn't had a green light poll yet, and the number comes from.
Okay, yeah. So that's why the yellow ones have all the same number. It's because we are taking it as if they got 0, so nothing in favor, nothing against. This is where the domain teams or working groups are going to post their work, so people can access it easily. So yeah, I mean, a Google Sheet is by no means maybe the best way of doing it, but it was the fastest way for us to get something that works and hopefully provide value faster than starting developing something that we do not know if we're going to use. Any questions?
Hey, Juan. I guess I'm having a little trouble understanding the diversification score. How does YEarn have a low diversification score and Gemini USD has a high, and so does CUSDC have a high as well? Is this diversification towards DAI or diversification in what way?
Pretty much, would you like to comment on it, or I can try to answer?
Normally it should be diversification in terms of collateral. In this case, I'm not sure why there's high. I think the idea was that CUSD, so the CUSDC is a bit different versus YUSDC in terms that you have to compound platform risk. So it should be looked a bit differently as something like YY curve. That answers.
Thank you, Primoz. Are there any other questions? All right, so I'll give it to you, Long.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so I'll just kind of reiterate, as Juan said, this is going to be public soon, and it will be, the link will be comment enabled. So if people have comments on individual scores, you'll be able to just leave them in the sheet, and someone will read them. Hopefully, someone should read them. And yeah, I mean, we're going to be kind of looking at this sheet like probably weekly, at least monthly. So all of the stuff will kind of get looked at. Whenever new assets go in or assets got onboarded. So this should be fairly like high traffic in terms of people looking at it. So yeah, so thank you for that, Juan. Looking forward to seeing that public and seeing if anybody does have any feedback on individual things. Vishesh, are you around? Are you ready to do State of the Peg?
Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
All right. So at a high level, we're sitting at around 934 million DAI issued. About 350 million of that from ETH A, about 160 million now from ETH B, 3.3 million from BAT, 400 million from USDCA, 90 million from WBTC, almost 60 from TUSD, and then smaller amounts from KNC, ZRX, and Mana, and then 24 million from PAX, and then smaller amounts from USDT, Comp, LRC, and Link. So just to kind of touch on where we're at in terms of the peg. So if we look back at the last 3 months, basically, well, if we look back at the last month, we see basically the peg has been holding steady at around $1.01, and that's been kind of, as previously discussed, the sort of steady state or equilibrium point for the peg. There's been, a lot of discussion around how comfortable people are with that stat, but that's definitely what you can see from the trading data. So the ETH price in the last month is basically fluctuated. It came down, a little over a month ago, and then it's kind of been rising back up. That has not had a huge impact on what happens with the peg, though we do still see that in moments where the price spikes in either direction, there's sort of a little bit of a sudden run up in the DAI peg price. That's basically just latency in the trading pair. So I'll go back and show that across other trading pairs. But in terms of the volume, so it's actually been surprisingly like mid to low in the last week. Again, centered pretty much smack dab on $1.01. So if we look at like the USDC DAI USDC pair, this graph makes it abundantly clear. So basically, if we look back to say August, there was quite a bit more fluctuation in the peg, and then basically since almost exactly a month ago, the price had stabilized and pretty much just held to $1.01. We've seen a fair amount of increase in volumes, but we've also seen basically a diversification and less of a craze around the percentage of DAI supply that gets allocated to farming yields. And we've also seen a huge increase in the proportion of DAI issuance that comes from stablecoins during this time frame. So, in terms of answering the question of what has changed, if we look at the DAI USD pair, this is sort of retained a bit of its price variability, just from the nature of this pair is a little bit more unpredictable. But we've seen kind of the similar stabilization in the last month or so. In fact, with a little bit of a sloping downward of the trading pair, whereas during some of the height of the farming craze, we'd seen that price spike up to say $1.04, $1.05. Since then, it again is pretty much centered around $1.01. And then, as always, the DAI USDT pair just kind of echoes DAI USDC. So, in terms of where a lot of that supply is sitting, obviously, so there's what's discounted from this is compound. So there's an excess of, it's up a bit, in excess of about 340 million DAI sitting in compound. And that amount basically accounts for the entire quantity of DAI sitting in the DSR currently. So that pretty much adds up 1-to-1. And then if we look at like Curve, there's say 87 million total across Curve pools. And then, other amounts. So there's Binance is sitting with about 30 million. And then this is a Sushi Swap pool there. So, we can see that outside of, say, Uniswap, which is holding, a pretty significant chunk of 220 million DAI, And then other exchanges, you see, about 100 million, a little over 100 million sitting in some of these lending and staking protocol pools. So overall, of that total DAI supply, if you count the 340 or so that's sitting in Compound, you've basically got, just under 600 million or so that's sitting in staking pools and similar kind of lending protocols. And then the remaining amount is basically held by either exchange pools or exchange wallets, and then individual users. So in terms of what that's looking like for the current distribution of risk, so if we look at in terms of market risk, again, ETH is the biggest pool that is subject to sort of normal fluctuations of market volatility. There's been a decrease in the lowest collateralization bucket, though that is primarily due to the rising ETH price. And then it's kind of a little bit bimodal, but more or less following like a skewed normal curve around 250%. And then what that looks like in terms of liquidation. So, at an ETH price of 320, basically you would see 318, you'd see about 30 million DAI liquidated. And then at 280, which has always been kind of this emergent middle point, that's where the big wall is of 100 million. So the interesting thing about this 280 mark, which appears to kind of have emerged as a meme, is that the last few times that we've looked at this curve, that 280 mark has still been the biggest liquidation wall. So this almost seems to be some kind of like market price that large vault holders kind of keep an eye on and manage against. And then basically what we see is beyond that point, it's kind of like a more continuously sloping curve. So a lot of those larger vault holders, protocols, pools, managed positions, etc., seem to kind of manage towards this microstructure. And then beyond that point, sort of individual users, smaller addresses, etc., kind of resume this continually sloping curve. So that's a positive data point as well, or it's a positive caveat basically on the risk profile, in the sense that it does appear that some of the larger positions, there is some logic that emerges in terms of the percentages that they're managed to. Okay, so all in all, I think that paints, at least in terms of the ETH proportion of the vault positions, a somewhat decent picture, in that there's obviously, large liquidation walls and risk points to be watched, but there does appear to be some degree of protection there in terms of how those positions are managed. So other thing to touch on, and let me sort of point to this. Okay, so one other thing to look at. So I've started to pull data basically. So we got all the different collateral assets. So I've got data on the distribution of positions for each of the different collateral assets pulling in rather nicely now. So I'm going to go ahead and update the same kinds of graphs so you can see this visually as the current site, but you can currently explore, and I'll get a new URL for this, but you can currently explore the individual positions for each of these collateral types. So if we look at BAT, like, you can see that you got 2 vaults accounting for almost all the BAT position. For comp, again, it's like 2 vaults. ETH-B, which recently saw a bit of an uptick in usage. Again, that primarily comes from 2 vaults. So there's kind of like this 2 vault meme. And then a couple of the other interesting stablecoin ones to look at. So for PAX, again, it's like 4 vaults that account for a large chunk of the PAX position, but the biggest one to watch is this 12.6 million DAI vault. And that one is basically sitting at like 100.6% collateralization right now. So, in terms of what we're looking at for liquidation of stablecoin vaults, again, that's a sensitive topic lately. But, again, I can also display like a single value, but for USDC, for example, a large proportion of the vaults are currently just at pretty much or below that current collateral requirement mark. So you can see like a lot of these largest vaults, the liquidation price is at $1, which basically means that they are like at the point of liquidation or very, very close to it. So again, I know that has been an important topic lately. So if anybody needs or wants numbers on the exact amount at each collateral ratio, I will show that, and I can share or send that with anyone that needs it. Okay.
Emphasis on the ones that are underneath 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be useful. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool if we could see the distribution of the stablecoin vaults below 101%.
Yeah, I will. I'll theoretically get that done today.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Vishesh. Kurt had a question. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah. All right. So I think that's the end of our scheduled programming. So let's see, we've got 10 past the hour, so we can have a brief QA if anyone has any comments or questions about any of the things we've seen in the call thus far. Feel free to chime in.
Hey, Long. I might add, I did post a forum post late last week about the new DSS chain log. It's a, so if there's any developers on the call, we do have a single contract on mainnet, Covan, and then also our Robston and Rinkeby deployments that you can point your smart contracts to and test against the chain log. Our current website at changelog.makerdao.com has the keys that we use, but it's also available on the oh yeah, thank you for the link. It basically just provides a way to get the contract addresses for the MCD system from an on-chain source rather than relying on a hosted document. So if anyone has any questions about that, let me know or send me a message privately.
Yeah, I think that's great. Like, so this would also be useful if I'm correct in having governance audit executive votes or executive spells as well, right? Because they can compare that the contracts modified in the spell are the same as the ones that are in the chain log, right?
Yeah, so you can pass it a parameter, the MCD VAT, and it will return the VAT address on that particular network. One of the things that it might be useful for also not only smart contract developers and auditing, but is UI developers who want to develop for both Covan and mainnet. You can just point to the chain log address and code in your keys for the particular contracts, and then you can that's really all you need to do. It'll return the correct contract, and then you can request information from that contract rather than having to hard code those addresses in there.
Basically DNS for us now.
Right. It is governance managed, so we'll probably be updating those when we add new collateral types. We'll add those in the executive spell. Currently, the smart contracts team does have access to modify that contract with our deployer key. However, once we get this fully integrated into our processes and everybody's aware of the need to make these updates, we can deny that deployer key and give governance full access to create, update, and delete keys in that.
Great. Yeah, that sounds really useful. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. All right, so I think we're across the hour, so I think we'll maybe do kind of last call for reminders. Juan, do you want to just mention the Claros call again?
Yeah, so Federico will be joining in 14 minutes from Claros to speak about the fellowship with the Maker Foundation. So if you're interested, I'll see you there. Thanks, Long.
No worries. Any other final reminders from anyone? Seems like no. As a final, I'll just do one to remind people that the onboarding polls for GUSD and PaxG will be on chain on Monday next week. So please vote in those if you have feelings about those collateral types. Right, I think that wraps us up. Thanks everyone for coming, and we will, I'll see you all again next week, I expect. Thanks, guys.